I am Lori Esposito Murray, President of the Committee for Economic Development of the Conference Board. Welcome to CED's Leadership in Challenging Times series, where we feature the outstanding business leaders who are recipients of CED's Distinguished Leadership Awards for corporate citizenship and business stewardship. This year, CED is paying special tribute to business leaders who have helped our nation navigate the many challenges before us, including the pandemic, an economic recovery that provides equal opportunity for all Americans, and building a more civil and just society. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with our 2021 honoree, Brian Moynihan, Chairman of the Board and CEO of Bank of America, one of the world's leading financial institutions, whose mission is to drive responsible growth and deliver for its clients, communities, and shareholders. Brian, it's my privilege to welcome you today.
It's great to be here, Lori. Thank you, and thank you for honoring the company. It's always a pleasure to receive honors by great groups like yours.
Oh, thank you, and it's truly our privilege. I'd like to start by first stepping back. We've been in crisis before: 9/11, civil unrest for social justice, global health crises, the Great Recession. What do you see as different about the current situation, and do you think real change is possible?
Well, I think you need to separate, the healthcare crisis away from the sort of the racial social justice and crisis surrounding that, because those are two different questions when you talk about, do you think real change is possible? I think we learned a lot in this healthcare crisis about a pandemic and about a pandemic response. And this was a world war where everybody was fighting the same war and on the same side, and you're seeing that progress being made. But we learned a lot about potentially better concepts of resiliency, preparedness, and things that are going to be important for everyone in the world, including, importantly, the United States, to make sure we have in place. And I think those lessons learned will be very important, just like we learned lessons from all the past issues. When you move to the racial social justice, I'd say real change is possible. After the George Floyd killing and the coalescence of events around how the pandemic was hitting BIPOC communities in a different way, the George Floyd killing and just the people being fed up with what was going on and how do we change it. And frankly, senior business executives, Black senior business executives expressing frustration, saying, can't we get this fixed? And the business community coming to the fore saying, hey, we've got to fix this. I think it's made some really interesting dimensions take off, and we can talk about those. But I think real change is possible, and I think real constructive change is possible, and you're already seeing it happen. But I think it comes just by the frustration of the situation at this point in America's history. I often reference the late 60s when you had racial unrest and you went into a recession with a gas crisis and you had an impeachment of a president and all these things that have gone on and issues have come forward. And it's 50 years later, have we made the progress we should have made on the racial social justice line? And that's the question on the table. I think real progress is possible.
Well, that's really encouraging. And just to step back again and look at when the pandemic hit. It hit with this devastating impact on the economy. It was the sharpest and fastest collapse of the economy, as we all know, and the worst we had seen since the 1930s. And the financial institutions were right in the bullseye. How did you respond, and what were the leadership tools you drew upon, and how did you set priorities?
Well, the one thing I think people can't forget in this, not only our company, but our industry, because of the lessons learned after the last crisis, the amount of capital, liquidity, stability we had, we went from being, after the financial crisis in the 5, 6, 7, 8 range, being part of the problem to, in this case, being part of the cure. And that was a good place to be, frankly, as a company. But that took a lot of hard work over the last decade plus to make sure the companies were operating well, had the capital liquidity. So let's put that aside. Then the question, what do we have to do? Well, when we looked at it at Bank of America, we came after this on a teammate-centric, client-centric, community-centric basis, knowing that in time of crisis, if you took good care of those constituencies, the shareholders would also benefit well also. So on a teammate, immediately we had to move teammates to work from home, especially the high-risk teammates right out of the box. Then we positioned 100,000 computers in people's homes, things we never thought we could contemplate, let alone do, and we did. But and we started, doing that immediately. Then we had to then make sure we became we always a healthcare provider in terms of insurance, but we became a healthcare helper because we had people getting sick and we had to help get them great medical treatment. So we built a whole team to talk to people who went through the process. And then we had to change the benefits. We had people working from home and their kids were pulled out of school. So we started childcare in people's homes for $100 a day. We gave people to hire somebody to take care of their kids in their house so they could, they could have a, frankly, the mental balance of being able to do their work and take care of their kids, because they were quickly pressed into becoming, a technology provider, a tutor, a hall room monitor, a lunch maker, all the stuff that schools did, they had to do. And so we did that. And then we went to the customer side. And the real question was, well, on the customer side, the number one thing was keeping the branches up and operational to help the economy keep going, even in its partially shut down phases. And that was important. And so we did a lot with the branch teammates in terms of masks and barriers and all those types of things, and imposing mask mandates on customers and social distancing. And that all went very well, but was a lot of work. And we also had to shut down the branches. Then we went to help customers in need. So we did 2 million consumer customers. Commercial borrowers came to us for a request for $75 billion in outstanding loans in 4 weeks, which is a lot of loans. Then we had to help in the capital markets of raising billions of dollars of capital for companies that need capital to get them through over to the bridge to the other side of the river of the pandemic. And then we did PPP, 500,000 PPP units, average balance 60,000. Very widespread program, 10,000 people working at the high point, believe it or not. And a lot of people volunteering on weekends to do it from around the company, showing that great Bank of America spirit. And then we had help distribute all the payments that the government made, and the Fed and the administration did a good job of saying, let's stem the tide on the crisis. But someone had to put those payments in people's accounts, and we did 43 million payments in each phase, to give you a sense, in the phases and stuff, and a lot of good work. And then we went to the communities. Before, the initial program was $100 million in extra charity to help communities. We ended up doing 30 million masks to communities to help them, $250 million extra capital into the CDFIs, the community development financial institutions, to help them lend in the community. And so you go down all those constituencies, and that's, we had to take that, and it served well. Our brand kept rising, our employee satisfaction kept rising, and there was a lot of activity, and the team did a spectacular job of handling.
Just really, really significant and so important. And, to take you back to the social issues, under your leadership, B of A has undertaken important initiatives, that have been spotlighted by the pandemic, that are front and center in terms of society and wage inequality, diversity and inclusion, hiring and training. Can you share some of those with us? I mean, they're really significant initiatives, not only for the immediate term, but for the long term as well.
Sure. So we think of it sort of two ways. One is, we're a company of opportunity. So how we hire, how we promote, how we measure diversity from our board of directors to our management team through every layer in the company, ensuring that people, that percentages of a population at every level, represent what's in society. Then testing for equal pay for equal work with outside people to test to make sure that we're doing that. Then, targeting hiring programs to help. We have a Pathways program, which hired colleagues, teammates from low and moderate income neighborhoods. We announced we do 10,000 of them in 5 years. We did it in about 3 years, and now we've announced another round of that program. And likewise, the military veterans and everything. And then how we spend our money, our vendor programs with minority and women entrepreneurs. 20% of all our spending goes to companies controlled by women and minority entrepreneurs, and that was a good thing. So we've always been a company of opportunity, and including our starting wage. We want people hired to come in here with a career mindset. So our starting wage, we announced in 2017, would go from $15 to $20 an hour. By 2021, we pulled that in a year early and moved to $20 an hour. Now we've announced we're going to $25 an hour. That is basically about ensuring that all our teammates have a living wage, have a strong wage with strong benefits, ability to have a family and be successful, and importantly, ability to invest their time in their careers and through our tuition reimbursement, other things, to continue to take advantage of our training and outside training to become with a career mindset, and that's worked. But then you had to move what we do outside the company. And I would say that we had recognized there's a lot of work done by a fellow named Raj Chetty and John Friedman about opportunities and the opportunities. So we were a company of opportunity, but frankly, our our home territory in Charlotte was ranked in Chetty's study as 50th out of 50 in terms of being a community opportunity. And we, as a company, were studying that and thinking about that. And then, lo and behold, we had the pandemic, which obviously started a whole bunch of questions, and then the horrible killing of George Floyd. And we said, we got to do something about the opportunity outside our companies. We announced $1 billion program, which is now $1.25 billion program, pillars of housing, jobs, health, and education, and putting our resources to work, but putting the resources to work in an interesting way. So we went about doing. We offered 5% to buy up to 5% of common stock of all the minority depository institutions in the country, and a bunch of them didn't need it or didn't want it, but we invested in 20 of those. That's behind us. We went out and looked for private equity firms who were run by women and Blacks and Latinx, Asian Americans, Native Americans, and then would invest in companies run by women, Black, Latinx, Native Americans, Asian Americans. And we couldn't find that many generally. So we went out and surveyed our teammates, or what we call market presidents, who represents all markets. We've now committed to 100 of those firms. They'll invest in 2,000 or 3,000 companies. It's about $300 million committed so far. 250 to 300 million. We'll go up to 350 million. But importantly, a lot of clients are coming to us and say, "Hey, can we invest? Because if that firm's good enough for you, they're probably good enough for me, and I don't have the professionals." But that we do an investment bank to analyze it, and then we basically went to work on the education side, and we gave contributions to the HBCUs, some HSIs, and some community colleges, really geared two different ways. One's about four-year college graduates and career development, helping them align to the great companies like Bank of America and these other employers. Community college is much more about skills. And so we've developed a lot of programs with people working on skills development, other CEOs in Charlotte and other cities, the 110 initiative, work we're doing with various other constituents on this idea of jobs by companies of the stock and trade to give people opportunity, and we're working on that. And then we gave 29 million more masks in communities to help on basic health care. And so we took the holistic approach. It's worked well, but the most important thing we probably did in some ways for the good of society is we also gave a contribution of 25 million to the Smithsonian with Lonnie Bunch and the crew to start Courageous Conversations platform for that institution across all the ethnicities. We have a Courageous Conversation platform in a company, and that was the most important part, because the teammates came to me and said, "Why can't people have the kinds of conversations, the tough conversations we have in our company outside?" So we seeded that money right off the bat to see if we could help those conversations take place outside our company also.
That's quite a comprehensive agenda and a really impressive one. And the 360 approach, as you said, the holistic approach is so critical in terms of trying to move us forward. You've also, as a leader, you're at the epicenter of defining the role of the corporation in society and playing a role on a global scale. You've said that stakeholder capitalism in investing in ESG should not be a burden, but a core business model. And you've taken that to actually lead the effort with the World Economic Forum on providing a measurable roadmap for the private sector. And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the number one thing is, if you look at it a lot of different ways. First, if you look at it, that the amount of money needed to make the fundamental change we have to make in the environment or human capital aspects and things like that far exceeds any ability of any government to do it, because they're running big deficits and their money's pretty well accounted for. Far exceeds charity, which is wonderful, but all the charity in the world that is about $1.5 billion, $1.5 trillion a year, substantial in the United States, of 900 million of that. So who can do it? The big companies can, by aligning their whole business system against the goals that the world wants. And so if you said, what would you like the power to do, which is what we ask our customers, think of the world being asked that, and they said it in 2015, the United Nations and the 190 countries signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals. And so to make those goals happen, you have to align capitalism against them. In 2017, 300 or 400 companies signed on to help drive the Sustainable Development Goals. So they had that. Now the question was, how do you ensure that capitalism is aligned to help drive those goals? Because then you can get the $6 or $7 trillion you need. Then you can get the change. And that took a set of metrics, a way to measure it. Now, I'll stop there and come back. The other way you can get there is if you actually, our research team under Candace Browning-Platt's leadership, is one of the best research teams in the world. And they have proven by continuing analyzing outcomes that companies who don't fare well on ESG metrics if you avoid the companies don't fare well on ESG metrics, you could avoid 95, 97% of all the bankruptcies. So you as an investor are saying, wait, if these companies don't do well on that, I can avoid the loser, so to speak, by staying away from those companies. So you had investors starting to understand how ESG was a better portfolio management product. So you have investors doing, then you have, your teammates won't work for you unless they believe in the purpose of the company, what you're doing. In our company, we believe we can deliver for shareholders and society. So your shareholders, your investors are saying, you need to do this. Your employees are saying it, your customers are saying it. The question was what to do. That goes back to the SDGs, the alignment, and the metrics. And so we said to the big four accounting firms, there are all these metrics going on out there. It's confusing to everybody. Can you come up with a set of metrics that are straightforward, that align to the SDGs, that we can get companies to agree to produce in their annual report? And the big four went through and searched it and researched it and brought together these metrics and did a fabulous job working together to do it. We now have 100 plus big companies representing millions and millions and millions of employees and trillions of dollars of revenue, et cetera, doing it. And all that's terrific because that then provides a standard of which these investors can start to look objectively about which company is above the bar, doing enough. If you only pick the best company, only one company to get invested in. The idea is it has to be broader than that. But also shows companies that are in, take the environmental area, hard to abate industries, that if they put a plan on the table and move forward, we have to stay with them and help them make that plan happen as investors, as lenders, et cetera. So the metrics are out there. They're strong. We've also worked with a lot of the metric setting groups to try to consolidate their metrics. And you're hearing the official sector come in. But all this is really back to a simple purpose. Can you deliver profits for your shareholders and deliver for society? It really defines stakeholder capitalism. And if capitalism aligns itself and drives us, you can actually get the stuff done. Absent that, it's either going to be regulated, which may or may not work right, as we've seen, or it's just not going to get done, neither one of which is a great outcome when society is so clear about what it needs.
So we're in the middle of a big debate right now in terms of what role CEOs should be playing on society's most challenging issues. I mean, we've seen this on voting rights and a number of other back and forth as to whether it's appropriate for the CEO to be involved in some of society's biggest challenges. How do you decide which issues to weigh in on?
Well, like everything else, we have a process at the bank and a way to do things. We just don't make decisions in an incremental way. We have a holistic process. We have an ESG committee, which has representatives from all our different businesses, representatives from our senior leadership, representatives from our control, our risk function, et cetera. And they all look at these requests coming up to do X or not do Y, and they assess them. And they come with recommendations to me and the board, and we make decisions. But it's generally based on what is important to protect our teammates and make sure that they're in good shape. So a lot of decisions are about where our teammates have spoken. And feel strongly about a position. Won't always be universal. In other words, we have 200,000 teammates who you can expect to have opinions that are as wide as any opinion you come up with. But it's important that we take a position when it's important to our teammates, important to the community we operate in a big way, like with the so-called bathroom bill in North Carolina. We had to speak because it was damaging. We could see from our clients outside North Carolina, it was damaging the state enough that they were losing business opportunities, even though they have a wonderful business community and it grows, that you could hear people pulling things off the table. So we work with other businesses and communities like that on issues like that. And we make our own statements where we think it's critically important to our teammates. But it's all made on a group of senior professionals who get all the pros and cons and assess it and also think through how we use our judgment. We also have a group called the NCAC that is made up of some of the great NGO leaders in the United States that we also advise us on some of these issues and ask their opinion. But the idea is to boil it all up, but use it when you can really add value to the equation, not indiscriminately.
So what are some of the most important challenges? We're certainly not out of the woods yet on the pandemic itself, never mind the societal challenges ahead of us. What do you see as the most important challenges ahead? And what are the most important leadership lessons that you've learned from these past 18 months?
You've learned in a company which is really about our teammates because we're teammates that are wonderful talent base. You have computers, and then you have your customers you serve. And if those teammates can't do it, the computers can't operate and serve the customers. And for those businesses which are relationship management, the teammates can't be there. So you just have to really work from your teammates in as to how you serve. And I think that lesson, that's not new, but it was played out, a lot here. The mental health needs of our teammates went up, and we moved very aggressively to make unlimited telemedicine type interfaces for mental health. What we did on the childcare, which is about $500 million of cash spent on top of our very good benefits for childcare, was really based on trying to maintain, the ability to work and have balance in the household, because it was just a place it'd never been before. And so we always think the biggest lesson I always say is you start from out at the end and come back towards the middle, and then learn from your teammates all along the way. And I think we learned that. The second thing is we learned a lot about. I think we've learned a lot about what it will take to be really resilient for our country and our communities in the world, frankly. And I think we have to start implementing that. We have to be more prepared for the inevitable pandemics that will come and go without having to shut down society, because the economic harm of that was huge. The human harm and the deaths are horrible. If we can avoid them possible, what you want to do is mitigate that and mitigate the economic. And so I think there's questions about how you can improve our capabilities for PPE and stuff. I mean, beginning of the pandemic, we were trying to get masks to give away to hospitals and governments who were ill-equipped to serve people. And you're saying, how could that be possible? That'd be like us, private industry running out trying to get, fighter planes if we got in a real war and give them to the military. That's not the way you operate. So I think we've learned a lot about being resilient and the leadership lessons. We have to be willing to pay for that resiliency and that preparedness ahead of time, and get it set up and get it going. And I think, those are the kinds of questions we learn. But I think the number one thing is just focus on your team, because at the end of the day, if they're not in the physical condition, the mental condition, and the physical plant condition, operating at home with computers to serve, you can't do what you do. And people needed the economy to function while we're out there, and our team did a great job, but the team also did a great job positioning to do that.
Well, Brian, it is truly our privilege to be honoring you this year and the Bank of America team. You've played such an important role. The entire team has played such an important role in helping us through this crisis, and also setting a real role model for the rest of the private sector, as well as in terms of leadership, both the public and private sector. So again, it's our privilege. We look forward to recognizing you and celebrating in October. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And thank you for honoring our company with the award. And it's an honor to be a part of this great group and be honored by it. Thank you.